So I had to redo this. Uh, Last week I got water in my masking, and totally the masking's like fused down in the paper in a lot of places. So I ruined this one. So I came back and hurriedly did this, which actually I think the clouds are better. They're looser. I didn't try quite as hard, but I did make a mistake right here that's going to be different from what you have, because I've got these rocks running right up um, to this landmass, and they were kind of hanging out there on their own before. I don't think it makes a whole lot of difference, but you may have a little place in behind the rocks that gets a little darker. See, you can see it right here. See that really nice dark blue area? Well, I'm going to have to make my darkest blue right down here in front of the rocks instead of behind them. So that's what I did. Okay, so I've got my dirty blue here that I used a little bit under the clouds and in this land back here, which this is a prettier blue in the photo than what I did. It really is. In fact, that's a lot brighter there. And I could come in with another layer. Well, let's just do a little bit here. I could come in with another layer of my mix. Remember, this is ultramarine and a phthalo green, blue shade of phthalo green. I don't even use the yellow shade. You can make so many good ones, you don't need to buy that. Okay, so I might, oh, that's going to be too strong. Well, here. In fact, I don't like those edges on that cloud. Let's just pull a little more color in around here, and, well, maybe I'll just block there a little bit. Let's see, I could pull a little bit more color in here. Hey, and if I leave a few places like that little spot right there, that looks like a distant drifting little cloud. That one not so much, that looks like a spot. Oh well, there. So, this has more of the green in it. And we're going to do that in maybe 2 layers. You can see a lot of the ripples as you get in closer. Then the color becomes not as pretty, because now we're beginning to see down into the bottom a little bit where there's sand and stuff, and so that really changes it. And then right here, look, we've got this cool blue reflection, and we also have some sandy areas showing through. That's a really pretty area right there. And then here, again, we've got that cooler blue that's a shadow. Because there's a cloud shadow or some kind of shadow cast on this too. That there's some more shadow right here on the phone. All right, so let's start out with a little more of the green. Oh, now that's a little too strong, probably. And you know, the smart thing is to test this stuff. Here, let's just test it right there. That's not bad. So the smart thing is to test things. I'm kind of bad about not doing that. I even do that on portraits, just skip testing when I know that I should. Guess this comes around in behind right there. You know, maybe I could make that. It's going to leave a band, though, that it's going to look noticeable. So here's the thing. as it begins to come this way, it gets lighter and weaker. Let's add a little more water right there. I think I'll leave those little twinkles up there. And I need to keep this edge wet. So I could come down this way. I'm just going to get weaker and weaker so that as I come down here, I'm going to add to this later. Now let's pick up a little more of this color. This is a rock. My version of a rock. And then we're going to add water here and go lighter. And you know, I could go on top of those rocks with the water. In fact, maybe I should. Those are rocks off in the distance. And if I get a little bit of dry brush in here, that might be a good thing. And you know what? Some of this, I won't know how it looks till I get it done. I think there's a lot of masking on here. And here's the problem with masking. It always distorts things because unless you use white masking, which is very difficult to work with because you can't necessarily tell what you did, you've got a color that distorts things. So it may distort your sense of value. But in this particular case, some of the masking is close to the watercolor. And so I can't quite tell where I put color in and where I didn't. That's kind of nice. Now, we've got this really strong blue-green thing going on here. Oh, look. We're beginning to get a little bit of a run back right there. So I'm going through this with a damp brush, which probably isn't that smart. No, it's probably not smart, but it's going to work out. It's all going to work out. Because all of these accidents are happy accidents. Until they're not. Okay, so we've got this. And I think the next thing to do, we're going to add a lot more color in here, but I think the next thing to do is to decide on the color of the rocks and the rocks back here. And you will notice those are still kind of a cool gray. They're not really brownish. You really don't see a real brown in here. You see a little bit of beigey tones in a few places, but there's no real something that looks like a strong brown. And if you made a strong brown, it might not look like it belonged here. You can see that I made this thing a whole lot bigger. See this end of this rock then right there? Because I was just playfully drawing and having a good time. I really don't like that that's that big right there. But it's another happy, very happy accident. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start mixing my color right here in this mixture. I have a little bit of mixture right here. That was that gray, that was the land black here, and I put a little bit of it under the clouds too. Okay, so let's just pull some of the blue. And then let's try a little burnt umber. And I said no brown. That is when I get through mixing it. But burnt umber is always just so convenient. Oh, that is very brown. Well, that is, still a little too brown, I think. Yeah, well, you know what? For the highlights, that's a good color. And then when we put the shadow in, we'll put more blue into it. Yeah, that'll work. You see how you just play with it, play with the color, take a few chances, see what happens. Don't feel like you have to have some exact formula written out. Free yourself up a little bit. You know, some of you have just been a little too uptight. That might be just a little bit dark. It might not be quite as big. Could you probably use a tiny bit more blue into it? We'll just throw a little more blue in here and a little more water so that it's lighter, and we'll let the color shift a little bit as we run along here. Now the thing about having this tilted a little bit, actually it needs to be tilted more than that, but you see how I can keep the moisture beaded up down here so I don't have to worry about that drying right away. Okay, this is getting a little bit lighter. It's thinned out a little bit. Let's pick some of that up and move it over here. So this is going to be a more interesting cliff right here. And here I'm not going to have white sparkles, because this is too far away to have that much contrast in it, and have it should be a lot softer, not much sense of detail because it's off in the distance. And if I put little sparkles in it, it's going to feel closer in, I think. There. Okay, now I have some masking down here for that, you know, where it's washing up against there. So you can see that looks really funky weird right now. We're going to need stronger color in the water, and of course a lot stronger color on part of this. Oop, I don't know what that is. I don't care. There's a sparkle there. Let's just put a little color in it. Okay. Because you could have, you know, you could have a few little rocks out there, I guess. Not too much detail, though. Watch myself. So here, that's a funny shaped rock, at least by the time I drew it. But I enjoyed drawing the rocks. And the reason was that I could just make shapes that pleased me as I went along, and lines, edges that pleased me, without being too concerned about realism. Now, to some degree, you have to put a little bit of thought into making the shapes rock-like, but there was just more freedom in it, and I could just move my pencil and make shapes, and it felt good. It felt really good to work like that. I wish that I knew how to transfer more of that sense of freedom. I'm going to blot that right there. I wish I knew how to transfer for more of that sense of freedom to some of y'all, because I think you could enjoy painting a whole lot more than you do. I think some of you are just too uptight about perfection, and it actually stifles the work. So, you know, more color. Should I change the color on these? Oh, I don't know. So here I'm running into some of my masking. And if I leave some twinkles and highlights in here, that'll be fine, because we're also going to have a lot of splashes showing here. So this is going to be just the highlights on the rocks. I think it would be nice to change color somewhere in here. I am just doing a little blotting because I would like to just vary it just a little bit. Because I'm putting in just basically kind of a, just a juicy wash here. So there's not a lot of detail or anything exciting happening yet. In part because I'm counting on my masking to do a lot of it for me. Now here I can see where I'm running into my masking. And right here. And of course, we talked about this before, that I moved some of my rocks over. I'm not going to claim that they're the best design. So if one was going to, let's say, do a piece that they plan to give to someone or hang on their wall or something, maybe the thing to do, in fact, more than maybe, the thing to do would be to do a little painting like this, or several little paintings like this, as a friend of mine who is an expert at this kind of thing would do. Play around with it, Maybe the next time, move a rock somewhere a little bit. So, some of these rocks have got reflections showing. I'm going to combine that reflection. See that reflection right there? I just decided to put that reflection in under here. You'll see in a little bit. Okay. Let's get that much dry.